Hi everyone. I have read your practicum logs number 2 and I have read your reflective exercises and posted feedback in your rubric on Blackboard as well as in Typhon. I want to talk just a moment about your practicum logs and provide you with a few tidbits to make sure that you're staying on track and getting all of your points. First, I want to remind you that the time log that is associated with the practicum log that you're turning in has to be done at the same time. That's the only way to reconcile the time that you're reporting and the activities that have occurred. If the time log is not complete, then it's like the time did not happen. So if you've been given a message that the time log needs to be updated or it needs to be completed, that needs to be done quickly. You will not be able to pass the course without all of your time logs being accurate and correct. I want to talk a few minutes about the subsections of the time log. That first column that gives you a running total of all of your hours, that should be 50 in each practicum course. There's subsections that are for conference time and research time and meeting with your preceptor for goals and development time. It's important to know that several of those types of hours need to be approved, not just by your preceptor, but also your course instructor. That is specific to conference time and research time and any type of professional development. So in essence, any time that you are not spent directly with your preceptor in one-to-one supervision in the practicum setting, you need to touch base with your preceptor to make sure that the allowable hours for those activities are acceptable and that they haven't been exceeded by participating in those activities in another course. Let me give you an example. Let's say in 623, you attended a conference that was related to a goal and objective, and that took about 15 hours of your goals and of your professional development time. You're only allowed to have about 10%. So you would be very close to hitting the maximum number of hours allowed for that subsection. So that would have to be a discussion that you'd have to have with your preceptor as well as your practicum instructor to make sure you did not exceed those time limits. Again, those things need to be done prior to the practicum hour completion, not afterwards. The other thing I want to remind you that your preceptors are told pretty routinely is that the time that you are in your practicum setting need to be with your preceptor. Your preceptor was approved to have the proper degree, the right credentialing, and the right engagement level to provide you appropriate supervision. If for some reason your preceptor is not in the practicum setting, or she or he thinks that you spending a few hours with someone else would be purposeful, that has to be discussed. 90% of all of your clinical time has to be with your preceptor. So again, that's a conversation to have with your instructor. Most of the time, all that is going to require is just letting your instructor know and then making sure that it aligns with a goal and objective that's related to leadership. I want to make sure you're aware of this. You have 2 more practicum courses after you're done with mine. So I'm sure Dr. Brown, who teaches 625 and 626, is going to want to hear from you as those things evolve. As far as the actual content, you guys are doing a great job. Make sure that as you go through your practicum and as you're documenting in your practicum log, that the time is directly related to leadership. If you were in your practicum setting and you were providing direct patient care, there are occasions that may be appropriate, but most of the time you should be in a leadership role, not providing direct patient care. And as you talk about your practicum experience, that should be the central theme that ties everything together. I hope that makes sense. Switching gears to your reflective exercise from this week, I have to tell you, it's one of my favorite assignments to grade. It's one of the ones that I think really tells me a lot about who you are as a student, but more importantly, who you are as a nurse, and even more importantly, who you are as a professional and as a nurse. So I think it's super revealing to listen to your evolution and talking about your experiences. I so appreciated the honesty and the transparency that came across in this reflective exercise. It really did ask you to really reflect on your own practices and reflect on your own opportunities that you've captured in being a servant leader. I love so many of the stories from I started with Celia's paper that talked about an elderly patient who was alone in his deathbed, and the beauty of being fully present in that moment. When Julie talked about really just dealing with her patient who in Celia's situation was also dying, talking about the dignity and the nurturing that occurred in those moments. Angel talked about dealing with some legal issues that related to a patient who had a DUI and the end of the life that cost, and the importance of treating everyone as a human being and the impact that had on that patient. Suzanne talked about really the theme for her was really dealing with dignity and allowing even elderly patients who are often dismissed in healthcare as being addled or unable to care for themselves, but treating those patients with dignity. Danielle talked about having a patient who had a new, very frightening diagnosis and what it looked like to be fully present with that person as they went through steps of evaluating and treating and facing what is a life-changing diagnosis, and how often nurses do that, and do that with grace and God's love on their side. And Jamie wrapped things up as I was reading her story about a soldier who had suffered from PTSD and ended up dying from a self-inflicted gun wound. The trauma of being at the bedside, of loving these patients through these experiences, whether it's a traumatic loss from a car accident or from a suicide, or whether it's a graceful exit because God's called them home and they're ready. So many of you were fully present in your patients' lives at these pivotal moments, and that is just such a beautiful testimony of what calls us to nursing, and what calls individuals to find their own talents and their own skills and apply them in their trade. Just so appreciate the time that you took to write those papers. From an AP grammatical standpoint, you guys are doing great things. The only comment I feel like I'm saying quite a bit is encouraging you to go back in and really look at how to use level headings. At this point, you should be really fully understanding the purpose of a level 1, 2, and 3 heading and being able to use those 3 headings pretty effectively. Your final paper is likely to use level 4 headings as well. Again, the use of level headings is just to help organize your thoughts and put all these pieces together. I think from a housekeeping standpoint, that wraps things up. You're going to be doing your last discussion board next week. I know this week kind of felt a little heavy with your practicum log as well as your reflective exercise, but next week's a little bit lighter. You do have Module 7's discussion board up there. I want you to really focus on understanding and reading your scopes and standards, and really looking at how you can apply those to the assignment. I'm looking through it and I don't see anything overly complex about this. The primary theme is looking at the 5 essential qualities of will. So make sure you really take the time to go back in your book and read the essential qualities of will. Think through those and maybe jot down your own ideas about that. And then as you move through the assignment, hopefully all of those things will click for you. Remember your timing. Your primary posts have to be done Thursday. The responses need to be done Sunday. If you have questions or concerns, touch base and let me know. I am going to be traveling with my family for the July 4th weekend, so we are traveling from 3 different places, all meeting in South Carolina to spend some time together. So your work will not be graded until probably Thursday and Friday of next week when I get back. But folks, I'll be available by email and can chat early in the week or over the weekend. If you have questions, I will be watching my email, so I won't be off the grid, but there may be a delay. And I know you're used to having feedback earlier in the week, but it will be a little bit later. Hopefully with the discussion board, that won't be too problematic. Know that I'm here. You are so close to being done. I'm sure you're tired and relieved. Summer courses can feel a little intense. And right now, if you're taking a second session course, you're probably a little stressed. Take week 7 to work ahead for week 8 and really work on your philosophy paper. And that's especially important if you're taking those second session courses, so you can get as much done off your plate as possible. Touch base and let me know how you are. If you have any questions or concerns, know that I'm here. Y'all take care.